Hi, it's Dre Griggs of Obsidian Wisdom. Today we discuss the importance of planning for and approaching retirement. So for me, when I'm saying your retirement is approaching, I'm thinking it's going to be within the next 5 years. There are a few things that we want to check off. For most of us, we automatically are thinking, do I have my money right? Will I be able to afford my retirement lifestyle? But there are so many more questions at the beginning of retirement that if we get these questions right, then we won't have some of those negative questions that tend to creep into our mind as we're going through retirement. For example, there are those who will ask, why am I so unhappy in retirement? Others will ask, how do I stop feeling useless in retirement? And there are a few who will ask, how do I mentally handle retirement? Where in our mind, we just thought, if I have the money right, then my retirement is great. But I have found that there are really three aspects of retirement that we need to make sure we take care of for us to really have peace of mind in retirement. The first one, you are correct, is we are worried about running out of money in retirement. The idea of me not working and money still coming in is something that all of us look forward to. But knowing if I've saved enough money to the point that I don't have to even think about money, I don't have to contemplate how much this costs, that I can do everything that I've ever dreamed of and imagined my retirement to be, while that is where we all want to get to have that amount of peace of mind in retirement, it's almost like playing chess or one of your favorite games where you have so many moves already planned ahead of time that even though as someone is maneuvering through the game, they may get a couple pieces here and there, but your strategy is so far ahead that you've already thought through several approaches that you could take depending on the situation and as it changes. For retirement, it's no different. The more prepared that we are, the less worry that we have. As things happen, we can think, I'm already prepared for this. I know exactly what to do. There's this old question that kind of floats through the superhero space, DC in particular, where they ask, could Batman beat every member of the Justice League? And they go through, and there's a couple comics that discuss it. And the idea is that Batman is so prepared that he's already taken all the contingencies into consideration. So he knows their strengths, their weaknesses, their tendencies. It's almost like film study if you're playing sports. If you know what the person is going to do ahead of time, as soon as you see them start to take a step towards a certain direction, you automatically know where your mind is replaying all of the preparation that you had, and your body automatically adjusts without you thinking of it because it knows their tendencies. For you in your retirement, we have to know your tendencies and we have to know the tendencies of the market. As the market ebbs and flows, you may have to make some ebbs and flows to your retirement plan, or you may be prepared ahead of time that you don't have to even contemplate as the market makes its changes. The second part of preparing for retirement is us being able to answer those really tough questions. What age do I take Social Security? When do I sign up for Medicare? How much should I pay each month when it comes to my healthcare premiums? What is paying too much? Should I explore some of those Medicare supplement plans, or does it make more sense for me to have Medicare Advantage? There are so many questions that we consider when it comes to our healthcare. How do we afford it? How do we pay for it? Does it increase as we get older? Should I get long-term care? There are so many things that we have to really wrap our mind around. And it takes things like our age, our health, our family history, life expectancy, the type of lifestyle that we want to live. Are we going to be near home or further away from home? All of these things come into consideration when it comes to you deciding what is the best healthcare plan for you. How do I make sure when I'm finally able to purchase all of my time back, so now I can spend my time doing all these amazing things that I've always dreamed of? I can do whatever I want, whenever I want, with whoever I want, then my body doesn't give out on me, that my body is able to keep up with my mind and all the amazing things that I want to accomplish. I know for me, when I retired from corporate America to start my business, that I took a lot of risk. I said, well, I'm in my 20s, I'm a very healthy person, so I don't need healthcare insurance. Well, I've never gone to the doctor anyway, so I don't have to worry about paying all these expenses. And then I can save this amount of money, put it into the business, and then everything will be okay. Well, what I didn't know is I would have this freak accident where I was playing volleyball at Florida Bible Camp. I jump up and one of the students kind of hits the side of my knee. I guess he hit it just right. And my patella tendon, which holds your kneecap in place, popped off. And I'm sitting here like, I don't have the health insurance. How am I going to pay for this surgery? And it was a very scary time, but it was something that I didn't even think I was taking a big risk. I mean, I was very healthy. I hadn't gone to the doctor in years. And every time I did go, they said, you're great. Everything's fine. And so for me, it just seemed like I was spending money on something that I was never going to use. And that really bothered me. But the reality is things happen. Another healthcare example in that literal same year, right? I retired and it had been not 12 months since I had retired from corporate America, where for several years I spent no money on healthcare. I hadn't gone to the doctor. And then I went to Nigeria with my father-in-law who was going for a wedding, and I had never been to Nigeria. So I was able to meet that half of my family. And another thing that I didn't know and wasn't prepared for when I traveled was that there are certain diseases that are common in a certain area of the world that maybe you haven't experienced. And for me, that particular disease was malaria. So I go to Nigeria, I'm there for about 3 weeks. I get bit by dozens of mosquitoes, and apparently one of them, or at least one of them, had malaria. I come back and I'm laying down, I'm sleeping, and then all of a sudden my temperature spikes up to like 104 degrees. My body's very dehydrated. I'm shaking, I'm very cold, and it was very hard and very painful to move. Well, I just thought I would sleep it off. Long story short, my wife drags me down the stairs, puts me in the car, takes me to the urgent care, and they're like, "Hey, you have malaria. You're not allowed to leave. We have to take you immediately to the hospital." And I'm sitting there like, wow, this is crazy. And again, I find myself without health care, something that I had been paying for all of this time. Nothing had happened. I'm in my late 20s. And while I understood that technically I was taking a risk by not having health care, in my mind, I hadn't used it. I mean, as long as I can remember, I'm a very healthy person. And since that year, ironically, nothing has happened. So it's just that 1 year that I had really serious healthcare concerns. I didn't have health insurance to pay for it. And for you in your retirement, you may feel like I'm very healthy. I don't have any problems. Everything's okay. But everything's okay until it's not okay. And so we want to be able to plan ahead of time so you can have that peace of mind that if you did want to go to the doctor, that you could, that you don't have to choose between funding your dreams or paying your premiums, that we have a plan that allows you to be able to do both. And the third and most serious aspect of retirement planning that I believe people overlook is the assumption is as soon as I have my money and my time back, then I obviously will be happy. But that's not always the case. And while I can appreciate it, because in our mind, we're thinking along the way, well, I'm not happy because of where I work at. And as soon as I stop working there, then I'll be happy. But that's not always the case. Or I'm not happy because of all these responsibilities that I have. But then if I get rid of those responsibilities, then automatically I'm going to be happier. But again, that's not always the case. For others, they said I always wanted to travel. I wanted to pick up painting. I wanted to do all these amazing things. And as soon as I can start doing this, then I'll be happy and everything will be okay. And while I think we're getting closer, again, that's not necessarily a slam dunk. For some people, that fear of retirement has to do with that feeling of uselessness where I'm not really doing a whole lot. Like, yeah, I picked up golfing and I golfed every day for a year, maybe 2 years, even 5 years. And then at some point, you're like, yeah, okay, I think I want to do something else. I still like golf and everything, but I just don't think golfing every day for the rest of my life is actually going to be as fulfilling as I thought it would be. And what I've noticed when it comes to our time and our money is we sort of get caught up in those first five things. They're very superficial, but we don't really know that. They're the squeaky wheel where it's the most pressure that we feel, whether that's paying our bills or something with our job or certain people that we interact with. That squeaky wheel is what we believe to be the most depressing part of our life. And as soon as we check off those first five things, then everything else is going to be gravy. And what I've actually found is, and what probably most of you has found as well, is the squeaky wheel is not necessarily the linchpin, the cornerstone that's actually moving the needle. That it is just the most annoying part, or even that it's the most stressful part, but it's not the most fulfilling part. And if you want to have an amazing retirement and you get nothing else from me, it really starts with you understanding what brings you fulfillment and happiness. What are the things that really drives that meter up for you? And you may have to try a variety of things and you may have to look back and say, yeah, I felt really good doing that. I would encourage you to even sit back and reflect on things that you did as a kid. For example, I love doing puzzles. I did puzzles all the time as a kid. That's just something that I've always found very relaxing and very rewarding. And I've done puzzles even in my adulthood. Now, as I work in the business and I had more kids, I've done less puzzles, but I know that is something that brings me immense fulfillment and joy. So that would be something that would be a part of my retirement lifestyle. For many of us, raising our kids was a very fulfilling part of our life. So whether we have grandkids that are nearby or we're able to volunteer at the local Boys and Girls Club or your local school, however that looks, we're able to give back to the community and spend more of our time helping the next generation because that was something that we enjoyed. I guess what I'm really trying to say is there's a part of our life where we describe ourselves based off of a short-term situation, but we have a pretty long-term horizon. So there may be a part of our life where we can describe ourselves as the parent of our young child because we're always going to the sporting events with them, we're tutoring them, we go to the birthday parties and the family vacations and the experiences, and even the food that we cook sometimes is heavily driven by the relationship that we have with our children. Well, when our children leave, sometimes we're not even sure what we like to eat anymore because we have been catering to them. We may not know what books we want to read or what TV channels we want to watch because we were watching and listening to the shows that our little children like, shows that were appropriate for them to watch, things that would help them grow. In another part of our life, we may have described ourselves based off of our education or our career or our job title. And then when you retire, we don't even know how to describe ourselves. Where people ask, what do we do? And we feel a sort of emptiness because we're not exactly sure what to say. We're like, I don't know what I do. I know what I did. I used to be this, or I did this for 20 years. But then that almost has a feeling of loss because we're talking about something that we used to do. When someone asks, what do we do? And that third pillar of lifestyle often has to do with who we're talking to, who we're surrounded by, that communication aspect of things. Each part of our life, there was something that we had in common with our friends, and that was a large reason we were friends. And as that situation changed, sometimes our friendship didn't make it. So sometimes our friendship was tied on the fact that I was dating someone and you were friends with them. So you were sort of friends with me. And when that relationship ended, both relationships ended. Or maybe you have friends in high school or college, and when you graduated, that friendship fizzled out because that was what the main thing we had in common was. So now that we're no longer in the same school, then it doesn't really make sense for our friendship anymore. There are others where we are friends because we lived in a certain neighborhood or because we worked in a certain profession. And then if we move or change jobs, those relationships fizzle. So when it comes to your retirement, what relationships are you able to maintain and what is it that you still have in common with them, even if you're in retirement? And for some of us, that means we may not have any of the friends that we've had for a pretty long time because we realized the only thing we had in common was the work we did. Most of the time we talked about work. Most of the places that we went, it was a work function, it was conferences, it was the meetings, and we talked about things with work. And we don't have as much that we can talk about. And that is why our proprietary wealthy retirement system is so beneficial. It's because we're not just focused on the money. You guys hear me say all the time, wealth is so much more than riches. We think once we have the money right that all the stress will go away, but you find that you have different stress. It's not that all the stress goes away, it's that we have different stress. And now we have to manage the money and expectations or the economy and our returns. There are other problems that we have. Maybe we now have to pay some taxes and we got to manage that. I have found where there's never really a very long period of our life where everything's on easy mode, that we get bored and then we start feeling unfulfilled, that we like the challenges. While we don't necessarily like the struggle during the challenge, we like the reward. We like honing our skills, growing in our wisdom. And so when it comes to you having peace of mind and you're approaching retirement, there's these three things that you want to be able to check off comfortably. The first pillar of the wealthy retirement system is what I call the future proof wealth formula. And that's just making sure that my money doesn't run out in retirement. The second is your prosperity healthcare blueprint. And there are so many choices that we have when it comes to having our proper healthcare that there are certain deadlines and consequences of our decisions that we sometimes feel paralyzed and uncomfortable making the decision because we don't know that we're making the right one. Does this make sense for me? And just asking a friend or a neighbor who seems like they're enjoying their retirement, what works for them may not work for you. And so you want to be able to look at your own unique situation and decide what makes the most sense for you in your retirement. And the third part of the wealthy retirement system is designing your dream life. It's really sitting down, understanding, getting to know yourself, and deciding what looks good for me. How will I enjoy my retirement? And revisiting that plan every so often because your goals and aspirations change as your wisdom and experiences change. As they change, you should go back and look at your plan and you'll realize some of the goals that you have, maybe they weren't as important as you thought they were. I think that's true for all of us. If you go back and look at things that you thought were very important 5, 10 years ago, it's probably safe to say that some of those maybe weren't that important. Some of the things that you were stressing about, maybe they weren't that serious. And so most people accept the idea that we review our finances to make sure our strategy is still working. Most people understand that we review our healthcare strategy to see if that's still working. But many people don't think about reviewing our lifestyle strategy and seeing if that's still working. And so if you or someone you know who is planning to retire within the next 5 years and want help feeling happy and not worried about it, don't worry, we got you. I invite you to go to obsidianwisdom.com to learn more. Until next time, stay safe and enjoy life.